Today's video is sponsored by Heart of the Tribe Gallery, where art meets community. More about that later. Glastonbury is having a World Heritage Day, so I've come down here to find out a bit more about it. Apparently UNESCO World Heritage Sites, we all know what they are. Well, Glastonbury is applying, or thinking of applying, to become one. So that obviously is going to involve a long process. So we've come down here to find out what those processes are. Is it going to be good for the town? Is it something we want? Do you want to have World Heritage status? So we've come down here today to have a look at that, and I'm going to go inside and see what's happening.
I'm Local Banter the Mayor, proud to present just off £1 consignments, who are two consultants who are helping us ask the question, could or should Glastonbury apply to be a World Heritage Site? It's an open question, could we, should we, what do you think, what would it mean, what specifically would it mean, and so on and so on. Very open process, but this is us for the first of three presentations. Thank you very much for coming. I really look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
Absolutely, we're very happy to talk, take questions and carry on discussions informally after this. Welcome, it's good to see you. I'm Paul, and this is Chris. And I will talk about the boring bit at first, so I'll try and be very quick, because I'm going to talk about the process that World Heritage requires, and the process we can go through in order to get a nomination in front of the World Heritage Committee, which is a branch of UNESCO. It's all very complicated, and I'm not going to go into all the details, and it takes a long time. But I just want to give you quickly a perspective of what's involved in seeking World Heritage status and the process one goes through. Chris and I have worked both in World Heritage sites, for World Heritage organisations, and both in the UK and internationally, and are closely involved with the management of the United Kingdom's 35 World Heritage sites. We got 2 new ones this year. A little bit more about those. But UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, is a part of the UN. Next year, it'll be its 80th birthday, 80th birthday, and it was founded in London straight after the Second World War. And the primary motivation was to engender peace and to use science, education, and culture as a tool of maintaining peace. And with that in respect, you could argue very strongly that it's probably failed, or it hasn't been a total success, and that's for sure. And so part of UNESCO, founded in 1945, the British were very closely involved in the creation of the organisation. It's over the years developed certain policies and approaches. There are many different UNESCO designations, from things you might see at the moment like biospheres, geoparks, World Heritage is one of them, intangible cultural heritage is another one. Things like international cities of film and festival are also other UNESCO designations. We deal with about 8 of them or 9 of them in this country. And the only people who can represent us to UNESCO directly are the state party. The state party is the UK government, and the UK government department that manages all affairs to do with UNESCO is split between the Foreign and Overseas Development Office, because we have a UNESCO ambassador based in Paris, and the DCMS, Department of Culture, Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport, who represent cultural heritage activity in this country. And for World Heritage, we work through DCMS, and their special advisors, both nationally and internationally, are Historic England. And the whole basis of World Heritage is to do with proving a place has outstanding universal value. Those 3 words are crucial. Outstanding speaks for itself. Universal means it's important beyond this country's borders. It's a global significance. Outstanding universal value. And part of the process of applying or discussing with UNESCO the potential of becoming a World Heritage Site is about those values. What does a place represent? How does it represent them? And how does it interpret them and use them for education, for community, and for visitors? And so we've had it's been a long evolving journey. When it first started designating sites in this country, it was very simple and straightforward, and Chris can remember it being done on two sides of a piece of paper. The last nomination we jointly worked on, which was successful 2 years ago, was 1,200 pages long. The process has evolved. It's emerging good practice about international conservation, education and presentation. And now we are facing in the modern world the challenges of protection and management, lack of public funding, local authorities not able to perhaps do all the things they would like to do, and the fact that these are challenging times we're all living in. And so the conservation and protection of the UK's collection, these 35 that we have, are currently under review. The benefits are being established. We're looking at how to ensure that we also make sure that communities benefit from them and maximise the benefits that can be achieved. And also we are in the disgraceful situation of being one of only 3 countries to ever have a site thrown off the World Heritage List. One was Iran, one was Germany, and just 2 years ago Liverpool was thrown off. And my personal opinion was that it was totally avoidable. And so on the tables there's a map. This map is just about to be reprinted. This has 33 World Heritage Sites on in the UK. As I've mentioned, we've now got 35. 31 of them are within the 4 home nations of Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and England, and 4 of them are in our overseas territories. One's in Bermuda, one's in Gibraltar, and also a couple of deserted islands covered in birds in the South Atlantic and the Pacific, which aren't inhabited. So we have a pretty wide ranging, and these are from natural sites to cities and towns like Bath, where we're from. They're cathedrals, they're castles, but they're also industrial sites like Blaenavon in South Wales, the Ironbridge Gorge. There's a wide range of sites that represent the outstanding universal value that this country represents. But this map is commonly available, and it's on the World Heritage UK. The World Heritage UK is a website that has a lot of this on. I am not going to go through this, but the process is a very complicated one. It perhaps shouldn't be so complicated, but it has become complicated and involves many parties. And you have to go through a procedure. And the top 2 items, and this is page 1, there's a second page with another 10 points. But at the moment, Glastonbury Town Council has commenced this investigation, and basically Chris and I are looking at points 1 and 2 only to see the potential of Glastonbury developing a nomination and coming forward. And if we are to ever make any progress on this, by the end of next year, we have got to have persuaded DCMS, the government department, to support this process in Glastonbury and to understand the reasons that Glastonbury would be following this procedure. So, and then it goes on to all this other stuff that has to be done. And here is the second page. I'm not going to go through this. I might just explain that ICOMOS, these lots of abbreviations. The UNESCO judges World Heritage through its World Heritage Committee. The World Heritage Committee is 21 of the 194 nations that are signatories to the World Heritage Convention. And that 21 meet every year, and they determine new nominations, and they consider throwing sites off for bad practice, as I've mentioned, and the overall management of our World Heritage. They have 3 independent advisory bodies. The one for cultural heritage, in other words, the built heritage, what we see around us in Glastonbury, is called ICOMOS or ICOMOS, and a nomination going forward on behalf of Glastonbury would be independently assessed by ICOMOS, and their advisory recommendations will go to the World Heritage Committee as part of the procedure. We don't need to spend more time on it, but the words in red are important. heritage has become an incredibly political business. It shouldn't be, but it is. And we even have new nations in the globe and the world now using their heritage to justify their national identity. Yet half these countries weren't in existence when that cultural heritage was created. And it's a very interesting dynamic. They're using heritage for very political reasons, political means. Again, we haven't time to go into that today. I'm trying to be brief. And this one diagram shows, this is just about the UK. There's a copy of it on one of the tables. It's that complicated. There are so many bodies and organisations that can get involved. And we are down here at the blue level at the moment, and we'll be down there for quite some time as we develop a commitment and a potential partnership to represent Glastonbury as we go forward. And talking to you is part of that process. And there'll be more presentations and events like this during next year as we get to the point where by December next year, our work will come to our first phase work will come to a finish at that point, and we'll be presenting the ideas to government when it comes up into this middle tier, before it gets anywhere near the international tier at the top, where we might get something in front of the World Heritage Committee. Your own town council has a vision for the community of Glastonbury, and at the moment that's in the draft neighbourhood plan. I believe in this room in
2 weeks, 2nd or 3rd of November.
I think it's the Sunday, isn't it? The Sunday, the 3rd of November, the Town Council are having a meeting in this room to discuss the development of the neighbourhood plan. And within that neighbourhood plan, your own Town Council has already made commitments, and they're listed here, but the ones I've put the highlighter on are issues and items that relate directly towards a potential World Heritage nomination, which obviously would reflect Glastonbury being a place of people and pilgrims. It has a unique, legendary character and historic qualities. It sits within a very distinctive landscape. We've been calling it, as many other people do, a sacred landscape. It wants to become an exemplar for an environmentally sustainable place, and protecting what is here and what is important is a very vital part of that. It's got a unique local culture, and it wishes to look at the status of World Heritage and attempt to bring forward an application for it. Now, that was written in the draft neighbourhood plan, which, as we said, is still in consultation, and that was written by your town council before Chris and I ever got involved. But it gives us a very good base to build the work that we're working on. So, and within that neighbourhood plan, there are policies drafted that relate to heritage and character objectives, community aspirations, and the town council has identified the criteria at which to apply to UNESCO. And again, that's also complicated. We're not going into this, I'm just laying this as background to where we are today. UNESCO have 10 criteria, a list of criteria, 10 criterion, sorry, get my plurals and singulars right. The first 6 apply to cultural heritage. In other words, that built heritage, the things you see and look at in Glastonbury today. And to get World Heritage status, you have to convince the World Heritage Committee that you meet at least one of these criteria. Most sites usually try and fit in with 2 or 3. Chris and I did a nomination recently that spanned 7 different countries. We put forward 4 criterion, 2 were thrown out, but we got 2. You only need 1 to be on the World Heritage list. So sometimes there's a bit of a tactic. But the Town Council suggested to us we look in detail at criterion number 3 and criterion number 4, which this shows. And I'm coming to my end. Chris and I might be bold enough to suggest we might be experts in World Heritage. We're not experts in Glastonbury. There are more books written about this place than any other place we've ever come across. It's unbelievable, and we are not going to read them all, and we are not intending to become experts in Glastonbury. What we understand is a process that can present Glastonbury to the World Heritage Committee in UNESCO with a very strong case. And part of our initial trying to understand what we're dealing with was to prepare this mind maps. You're probably familiar with mind maps. You put lots of words down and you try and build up their significance and what you understand about them. And this is, we discussed this with the Town Council. The Town Council has its own special committee dealing with the World Heritage status, potential World Heritage status, and we presented this with them and talked about what does Glastonbury represent and what have we missed off, what have we not got right. And there's also a couple of mind maps on the tables with some post-it arrows, and if you want to stick on those boards the particular points that you support or understand, please do. We're at a very early stage in this process, and we're only at the very beginning, and so that's my little bit. Chris and I have got our emails there. There is a special Glastonbury Town Council email as well for anybody to write in at any time with any points about World Heritage. So world.heritage@glastonbury.gov.uk is being monitored every day. So if you don't write or speak to us today or write something down, you can, anytime you like, please get hold of us. And that is all I need to say. And now I'll just very quickly put Chris's presentation on. And Chris will talk about far more interesting things. There you go.
Good evening. Well done. Thank you very much. I will be just illustrating a number of World Heritage sites that are already inscribed on the list. Glastonbury pops up every now and then, and it's not yet inscribed, or might not be. As I was preparing this, I realised that next year I will have been involved with World Heritage for 40 years. Now, 40 years ago, it was so simple. I looked at some sites in Norway where the inscription was just on a single sheet of paper, half of it in French. And so things have shifted on, and now it's getting more complicated. To help us today, I've grouped my illustrations into 5 groups. No particular order, and they can be mixed and matched in all sorts of ways. But I thought that these 5, starting with sacred spaces and then ending up in legends, had some logic to it. So, starting with the sacred places, we have a quote already well known that Glastonbury is the holiest earth in England. Some parts of Glastonbury are acknowledged to be extremely sacred, very sacred, and Lady Chapel will be one of them. That's on the top. There are others who would regard Chalice Well as sacred, and that's a different, I think it's a different sort of sacredness, but here is a discussion that we've got to have over the next few weeks and months, or what do we mean by a sacred place? Make it more complicated. All the way around Glastonbury, we have some holy islands, and they contribute to the fame of Glastonbury and the wealth of the Abbey in their turn. But are these little islands and chapels, this is the fish house, not the chapel, are they as sacred as the Lady Chapel or the Tor? So an interesting discussion and debate. Now, there are plenty of other sacred places on the list. Here's Fountains Abbey. This is, they reckon they're the largest medieval ruins. And I'm not sure, we'll have to measure that. It's a Cistercian abbey, and it was much later than anything that happened in Glastonbury. But that was put on the list some years ago. I've got a date there, 1986. But most of the inscription describes the park and the grounds rather than the ruins. The ruins are very interesting. And interesting enough, the first church there was a wooden church, which was then replaced by a stone one. Now, here we go with Assisi. A huge site. All the way across the valley are little basilicas and churches and shrines, mostly linked with Francis. A very important site for the Italians and for the Pope, because the nomination went in the Pope arrives for a conference, Pope Paul, I think it was, and they altered the inscription to refer to peace. And that was the peace conference that he had. So all the way through the nomination process, important people can influence how it is. So Italy has accepted that particular site. Huge site. There are lots of management issues. I stood on the top there with the mayor, and he was describing how he was managing the site. He wanted to have free Wi-Fi over the whole of that valley as part of bringing people together. Nice man. This is Greece, another holy site, and a huge site with all the hills all the way around. And you can see most of it is in ruins. So don't be worried about the wreck of an abbey. Ruins happen all over, and a lot of nominations, a lot of inscriptions are with ruins. What I found interesting there is they were celebrating a cult, which is, we make a note of that. But I found that quite an interesting site. Turkey is a secular country, but it has a lot of religious sites in it. I went to Edirne before that was inscribed on the list. It is a huge mosque. And as an architect, I was thinking, how on earth did they build that? Because it is absolutely incredible. But here is a sacred place in a secular society. We were allowed all over the place. What is interesting for us in this exercise is the mosque is huge, as you can see, but alongside it, the hammams and waqfa and all of the support mechanisms that that particular mosque requires. So the kitchens and so on for people. And we could wander around that. So the whole of that site, not just the building, is inscribed on the list. Now, a slightly different form of sacred site. Islam will use the word baraka, so our friends in Turkey would recognize baraka. This is a site in Kenya. I was born in Nairobi, but I didn't go to this part of the world. We lived up on Lake Victoria, up in the middle of Africa. But in the household, our household, baraka was used quite a lot in everyday conversation. And it meant a sacred place. Here on the coast are 10 sites spread all the way along the coast. They are sacred groves. They have spirits and ancestors, and the communities there continue to worship them. Or, no, respect them, I think would be a better word. In those groves are buildings, remains of buildings, which have been long abandoned. So they've got ruins in a sacred place with their treating of as baraka. My friends in Israel say, well, we use the word Baruch, and that means the same thing. Some of you will be thinking, baraka, I know the word. Yes, you do, because where we lived, up around Lake Victoria, is Barack Obama's granny. She lived in the next town, and one of his cousins lived in the same town as we did. So Barak is a common name, but it does mean blessing. As a small child, you could see blessing being appropriate. A different form of respect is offered by tapu in New Zealand. The whole of Tongariro World Heritage Site includes the 3 volcanoes you see there and all the desert area around it. A young Maori girl in the visitor centre was saying to me when we were there some time ago, you will never understand. You're a Pakeha. That means tastes like pork, I'm told. I'm a foreigner. I would never understand how this works. But it is a deeply spiritual concept, and it applies to these sites. Now, the lake below is a sacred lake, And as you go along a path to reach the lake, there are signs telling me, as a foreigner, what I had to do. There was no smoking, no eating. I had to wear respectful clothing and so on. So respect comes into Tapu. So that's another big World Heritage Site. I've got a little group here who are involved with pilgrimage. Quite an interesting concept. It's an abstract concept, but I've put Canterbury Cathedral down here when it could have been in the first group. It's more famous for the Canterbury Tales and pilgrimage still takes place. But in the site, there are three component parts. The oldest is St. Martin's Church, that's the top image. That's got Roman walls in it, and it is the oldest continuous parish church in England. The abbey is in ruins, similar to here. There are other monastic ruins tucked up close to the cathedral. When we come to look at our analysis of the attributes in Glastonbury, Canterbury Cathedral is about the same size as the whole of the Glastonbury ensemble. It burnt down 10 years before this one burnt down, and so they've got a commonality. Useful to compare how they are inscribed and managed. And management is something we can talk about later, that we can come back to. And here are the three components. What is interesting is Anglo-Saxon sites tend to develop along a straight line as a new chapel is built. Lady chapels are usually built on the east side. Glastonbury is so different because the Lady Chapel is on the west. Now, another important inscription, I guess, is Santiago. The town is quite a big inscription. There's a lot of area included in it. And then later on, they added to the inscription the first of a sequence of pilgrimage routes. And that has grown and grown, and the routes now crisscross across France. And our friends in Spain are looking at other routes, and there's another one coming up through Portugal. So this is hugely important. I was there in a holy year, and I was amazed at the stream of pilgrims working their way across to get to the cathedral. An important site, and one we can learn management issues from. This is one which I was a schoolboy when I went there in 1961, and I was completely knocked out by the architecture. I mean, I went, wow, a schoolboy from Watford seeing that Baroque nonsense really turned my mind. But this was built as a pilgrimage church. There was a miracle or a vision on a statue, and tears were coming down the statue's face, and that became a pilgrimage spot, and this church was built. Totally isolated in the Bavarian hills. There was just nothing there. It was a bit of a surprise for us as we were walking past it. But that was inscribed as a testimony to something that has now gone. But an amazing building, and when you've got a spare holiday, get up in the hills and have a look. They're alive with the sound of music, I assure you. Here is another pilgrimage church, well, there are several churches, and these churches are twinned with Glastonbury. They were built as pilgrimage destinations. The Crusade wars were taking place in the Holy Land, and this was an alternative, and they were trying to attract the custom. And so there is a commonality, again with Glastonbury, as well as its twinning. And there are management issues there which are quite serious, which are being addressed all the time. Now, this is not a World Heritage Site, but I've grouped some examples of looking back into the depths of time and early churches. I think it's quite important that we look at the deep history, although it might not be part of the inscription. Here we go. The Sweet Track and the Lake Villages do contribute to the story. Arguably, they could not sustain a nomination based on sacred landscapes or legends, but they're there and they are the beginning of our journey. But this summer, Robs and I went to Germany, and the lake villages in Switzerland, France, Italy, and Slovenia have all been inscribed. There's 1,000 of them inscribed on the site. This particular one archaeologists had rebuilt some buildings as they understood them to be from the archaeological evidence. I put up on the left-hand side 2 different types of wattle. So they were experimenting or exploring 2 different ways of building a wattle building, and some of them were about the same size as the space inside the Lady Chapel. That's one of the more recent ones. Here is an earlier one, and this is an early church in Ireland. Ireland has 2 World Heritage Sites, and this is one of them. And it's 12 kilometres out in the Atlantic. And this represents how the early Celtic church started. Monks would hide away in caves and little buildings like this. I'm not going to attempt, well, I'll attempt the Irish Loch Cain. I looked it up on the website, and I had 3 different ways of pronouncing it, but it meant pile of stones in Irish. That is a very early church, one of the few inscribed on the list of its type. This is a really important site which I've not yet been to. Mont Michel has the same foundation, the same story as Glastonbury. It started off as a very small sanctuary and then grew into an important abbey and a place of pilgrimage. And it's a Benedictine abbey. In recent years, the inscription changed from just the church on a mountain to the whole bay. And so the huge landscape has been added to the inscription. And it's a stunning photographs. Not been there yet, but I have been here. And this is Aachen, and it was inscribed in the, I'm trying to read it, 1978. It's one of the first to be inscribed. It's number 3, I think, on the list. It was inscribed at a time when the European Union was coming together and there was high politics in Europe, and that's reflected in the inscription. And so it was the unification of the West and the spiritual and political revival. That's what it says on the thing. Now that's because they were writing that inscription when the European Union was beginning to come together and looking for some power. This is an extraordinary building. Charlemagne's throne is there, you can see it, and it was designed so that the sun shone on Charlemagne. This is what rulers would like to see. At the same time, what interests me is the chapel is the same size as Stonehenge. The builders of the chapel were aware of Stonehenge, and they were building something to respect that early beginning. And the chapel was built at the same time as our interest in dates here. Another site which has kings involved, all the German kings are buried in Speyer Cathedral. Huge building. What is interesting is it's been rebuilt several times. It fell down, there were fires, it was refaced. So authenticity is elastic, I would say. I was involved with assessing a nomination for the synagogue that was burnt down in 1938. Unfortunately, there's no link between the history of the synagogue and the Jewish community and the this cathedral, which was built for the kings of the area. That's something that no doubt they will address. Now, here's an early map, 1730s of Spa, as it was then. You can see in red the cathedral, but there are also ley lines crisscrossing through the town, and you can see the north-south one, no, east-west one, sliding up and down. The whole main street and the various buildings on it are on that ley line. We think we're going to leave ley lines for the moment. We'll stay with sacred geometry, that's fine, we can justify that. But ley lines have been challenged again and again and again by reputable archaeologists. But this is interesting. I thought that was interesting. Now, another abbey in Reichenau, which is down near Constance in Germany, they reckon they were the cradle of European culture. And the island site, it's now linked by a causeway, was an island and it had 20 churches. There are 3 remaining, and they are very old. The one on the bottom here has extraordinary wall paintings describing religious scenes. Well worth seeing and an interesting place. But this place has legends, and here we have part of a painting showing St. Piran getting rid of the snakes and the toads and the frogs. And the painting shows all these little creatures running for cover. So that had a founding legend, and a saint was doing his best to make it work. We stay with legends for the moment. That's my next group. This gives UNESCO a great deal of difficulty because they're intangible and they could be challenged. But they are there, and they've held faiths together in various ways over the years. This is Gallen. St. Gall is the character that we're interested in. Apart from that, a tremendous abbey, huge complex, and the library inside, which is the bottom picture, is worth going all that way to have a look at it. It's a tremendous library. But St. Gall met a bear sitting in the woods, and they became friends, and then the bear went and collected firewood and so on. But that bear is part of a legend for the founding of this abbey, remains part of the Swiss legendary founding people nature. So that's one legend, but it's not presented in the inscription for the World Heritage. Here's another one. This is closer to home. Giant's Causeway. A tremendous place, and the science of geology is there to be seen. But in the visitor centre, most of the information is about the giant, and certainly for children, this is the right thing to do. But the UNESCO is staying with a rather geological scientific basis. They recognise there is a legend around, but it doesn't describe it. And the last one is, next year, 40 years ago when Bath was inscribed, it was a very slim document. We've managed to flesh it out in our recent inscription of the great spas of Europe. But I think my 2 boys learnt about Bladed and the pigs more than the scientific nature of the iron in the water, which do you good if you drank it, and so on. So the pigs are a legend which is always there. All the children in Bath get to learn it. And it was well respected. This is a 15th century drawing in a book. You can see Bladed learning to fly over the springs of the walled town. So legends are in most places. I think founding legends are helpful. It's something that we can run with, but UNESCO doesn't like them. There we go.
So I talked about the boring bit of the process, and Chris gets the cake, because that's presenting, apart from the sweet track, those are all World Heritage Sites. And as we develop a nomination for Glastonbury, one of the key next pieces of work would be to do a global comparative analysis of what's already on the list to show that we're bringing something that's missing off that list. And I think we're pretty confident we can demonstrate that, but that is some way off yet. But by looking at those sites, apart from the sweet track, are already on the World Heritage list, and gives you an idea of what the committee's been looking for in the past. So that's what we're very happy to take questions, or just talk to you separately after this. As I said, it's very early days for our thinking. If before you leave, tick a post-it and the right colour for whether you like what we're talking about, or if you don't like what we're talking about, or if you don't know. And if you've not yet made your mind up about World Heritage, please tick that one. There are the mind maps with little post-its to stick on if you want to point out certain of the themes and ideas if you feel they're particularly strong. There's a questionnaire for adults. There's a questionnaire for children. Even adults can have the love hearts and the sticky toffees if you want. They're not just for the kids. And please fill those in as well if you like. You've got a brochure just describing the brief outline of where we are at the moment, and there's the email that you can contact us anytime you like. And we want to know what you think, and we want to know what you don't like as much as what you do like. And quite a number of you in the audience already today have raised certain issues that certainly will be central to the concerns of the community. I have to say a lot of those issues are issues that World Heritage won't sort out. They won't sort out the highways. You have a highway authority who does that, and things. But visitor management, the presentation of the place, and the promotion of the place are central to World Heritage status. But it's more about care and management than it is about promotion. Anyway, that's all.
Can I just add, when Bath was put on the list all those years ago, it's a 9-page document. Management wasn't a requirement. It wasn't required at all. That came along later in 2009, that, oh gosh, we ought to have a management plan. What I prepared for in the dying days of the old city of Bath was a list of management initiatives that we were running as a city council. We had all sorts of things, nature strategies, clean air strategies, everything that is a duty on a local authority, that was being done. Now, in those days, UNESCO said, well, you could have a coordinated regime, as long as you coordinated the initiatives that were taking place. That happened anyway, because the City Council talked to each other and the committees handled it in the same way as you will have committees in Glastonbury talking to each other and making it work. Then somebody made it more formal. Well, you could write all this down. Last year, I wrote a revised management plan for Bath, which has remained on somebody's desk, because it's not known. There's no talking to each other of what to do with it. So it does require lively contributions from elected members and the public who will chase them to make sure that they are doing what they should be doing, is talking to each other and making it all work.
I'd like to thank Paul and Chris for the presentation. It's fascinating. I think one thing that unites all of us in Glastonbury is a belief Glastonbury is special. And the question is how do we take that forward? How do we make the most of Glastonbury? I think they're both open to questions now.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe we could have some questions from the floor and then just break into more informal groups after 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah. So you're asking Glastonbury World Heritage or not, and it's quite a fancy program here. But I'm wondering, I would like to see something what is actually telling me this is happening if Glastonbury is World Heritage. So, like numbers, what does it mean for tourists? Where are the numbers on, where's the display of this is why I'm here actually.
You must stay with us.
I stay with you.
We're at the first part of the journey. What we are trying to do today, and with all your contributions, is get a feel of what people think what they value and what they are worried about and so on. We will prepare that for a report for the Town Council Committee saying, this is what we found out on this exercise, and we're back here for the Frost Fair, and you've got a meeting also in November on the neighbourhood plan.
It's neighbourhood.
So we're gathering information. We should have a good idea of what people like to see, what they're worried about, what they're happy about. We will then try and translate that into what it would mean to bring forward a nomination. We're not there at the end, but you make a good point. We've got to set out, here is the information on which you make a decision.
Yeah, exactly. I need the
Chris,
information
can
to
I
make.
just correct you on that? The meeting that you described on November the 3rd is a public consultation day, open to the public in this town hall.
What does that mean? So
It's like this.
It's like this, but will there be the information of what is going to happen for Glastonbury if it's a World Heritage?
This is a neighbourhood plan consultation day.
No, but if I can answer vis-a-vis World Heritage, you're asking for something that which we could answer in full in probably 5 years' time. World Heritage does not replace any of the responsibilities to manage Glastonbury properly. You've got national, regional, local government to do that. That's already here. What World Heritage will do will highlight what's special about this place that needs special attention. That will come forward in a draft management plan for a World Heritage site if it's accepted, and that will deal with the issues you're talking about. What extra does it bring? What extra pressures does it bring? What extra management does it need? And how to make sure that the status of World Heritage doesn't impact negatively on the place and brings benefits. We are some years away from producing that yet. If Glastonbury from today was to be a successful World Heritage site, it is at least 7 years away. Because that's that process. I think you came in a little late. Well, we'd explained the process, and it's very lengthy and complicated. And so we're probably 4 to 5 years away from a detailed management plan that's submitted with the nomination. UNESCO take 2 years to determine it. We're at least 7 years away from getting a result, and that's if we continue this process with the sort of momentum that the Town Council has been able to put behind it so far. Okay.
Yeah, UNESCO has paid lip service, if you like, to sustainable tourism. In fact, I believe in 2017 it was their sustainable tourism year. And yet to this date, they still don't have anything in place around sustainable tourism. Now, you've talked at great length about what the benefits are. There are many, many things that aren't benefits. I mean, for example, this town, it will increase tourism. That's not questioned. So where do the roads go? Where do the buses go? Where are our local train services? Where are they going to park? How are they going to get here? Where are they going to stay? It's all right saying, okay, well, 5 years down the line, we'll be looking at that. Shouldn't we be looking at that now before we spend all this money looking at the other things?
Those things, I'm sure, are being looked at now. They're a constant issue for a town like Glastonbury.
But will this make it worse? That's my question.
Not necessarily. It depends how you manage the place and what resources you're able to bring towards it and how you apply those resources.
So we can't even get our roads fixed. We're that scared.
Well,
have you driven down the road here? I mean,
yeah, you and the rest of the country.
Exactly.
World Heritage won't immediately bring new roads everywhere.
no, I'm not saying. Well, I'm just saying if we can't afford the roads, then how can we afford the car parks, the infrastructure, the things that we're going to need that this will make essential?
Well, that's a very good point. And sometimes you can use World Heritage status to push you higher up the list of getting those resources.
Sometimes,
yes.
In
There's
the
no
meantime,
guarantees.
this town could be.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 20 feet that way, one of the third or fourth lowest income wards in the country.
Yeah.
And there has also been lots of evidence when this has happened. Places get gentrified and the poorer people get pushed to the edge. What can be put in place to stop that happening? I mean, I'm not making this up. You can look it up. It's there. It's factual evidence, and it happens. So it's, I'm surprised you've come along.
Gentrification happens whether you've got World Heritage status or not.
No, but what I'm
It's
saying
an
that,
economic dynamic.
but World Heritage status could make it worse. It's all right saying all this could happen anyway, but what we're talking about is something that could negatively
If
impact
not
on the
managed
town.
properly, World Heritage can emphasise pressures. If managed properly, it can keep those under control. And we've got examples of both. The one thing you mentioned was that UNESCO haven't done anything about a sustainable development policy. They have. There is one now.
There is one now.
There is
How
one
long
now.
ago did that come into place?
Sorry?
How long ago did that come into place?
2 years ago.
2 years. So
Two-
that's
2
quite a
years
few
ago.
years after they had
Yeah.
a year of
Yeah,
it.
it's one of 17 sustainable development goals for that the UN have, that UNESCO are dealing with, and it's a very important one. There are such things as increased tourism, which is good, and increased tourism, which is bad. I would, however, say that Glastonbury will get increased tourism whether you get World Heritage or not. World Heritage may well enable you to manage it better.
Can I just say something? And this is really important for Glastonbury. There are different types of tourism.
Yes.
And Glastonbury is a pilgrimage town and not a tourist from the book, town. It's a pilgrimage town. And this is pilgrims will find their way to Glastonbury without the title of World Heritage or not.
But we probably haven't got the data, but I would suggest that not 100% of visitors to Glastonbury are
No,
pilgrims.
that's not what I'm saying.
No, there
That's
are
not
other
what
sorts
I'm
already
saying.
coming here.
Exactly, but I can tell you from my experience, the town is really thriving on the pilgrims
Yeah.
in town, not on the tourists. They are not buying anything. For them, it's like museum visit. They are not buying in the shops. This is pilgrims who are coming for a sacred reason, who are making this town what it is.
And that's why it's so very special.
Exactly.
And that's why I also commented to you before, and I'll say, because it's obviously videoing as well, that there's nothing broken presently regarding sacred sites and tourism in Glastonbury, so why fix it if not broken?
But other people are saying the roads are broken, the infrastructure's broken, there's not enough car park already. So perhaps some things are broken.
Don't believe that. You just said that you can't promise to do that, so it's not even your remit to do that.
No.
What I'm saying is nothing's broken presently to fix it. It's my comment.
No, yes, you made your point to me about the sacred sites. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much. We're here all day, so please come and talk to us. And we thank you for your presence. Thank you.
Well, that was an interesting presentation. I'm putting it out unedited because you guys need to make your own mind up. I think there are many good things that will come out of this, but I'm not sure that they've actually looked in depth at some of the damage it could do to a town like Glastonbury. They've not actually even specified which parts of Glastonbury so far they are going to put forward. Is it the town? Is it the Abbey? Is it the tour? I mean, what are they talking about? And no matter, even if it's not the whole town, will it have a detrimental effect on Glastonbury as it stands now? So it's over to you. There are going to be more meetings like this as this goes forwards, so you will have your chance to have a say, and I suggest that you look into it and you do have a say, because if this does go ahead, it could have a major impact on the town in which you live. So for now, that's me. I'm going to wrap this film up and put it up so that you guys can have a think about this yourself and maybe come along to one of the future meetings and put your views forward. But for now, from me, bye-bye. The Heart of the Tribe Gallery is a community art gallery situated near the top of Glastonbury High Street. They host amazing exhibitions supporting local artists, and they have a beautiful secret garden out the back. So be sure to check them out and support local art.